Welcome back, everybody. And as a few more folks are still logging in here, again, we want to welcome you to another monthly Aplos webinar. This is a monthly educational series we like to do for nonprofits and churches and people who are in the helping business out there. And we're super excited that you've joined us today. We've got an exciting morning. We've got a special guest that we're going to introduce in just a couple of minutes, Abigail Shulz from Continue to Give. I'm going to introduce her in just a minute or two. Just once again, I got a couple of you. Just want to make sure that one or two of you could just type in, let me know that you can hear my voice and you can see the screen above in front of you. That would be great. Thank you. Welcome, Lisa. Good morning. Good morning. Good. Great. Hi, Tim in Illinois. Good to have you. Good to have you, whatever part of the country you're in. It's Aplos is on the West Coast, so we're morning. I know some of you are coming back from lunch, and some of you are right in the middle. So it's great to have all of you. If you're a first-time registrar or a first-time person to our webinar, we want to welcome you. A special warm welcome to those of you. Aplos software, nonprofit solution software. We like to offer these monthly educational webinars for those of you who are in the nonprofit and the church related fields, and hopefully we can you can walk away with a few new tips, some practical tips that you can use to your everyday nonprofit work, leadership, fundraising, all of that. So, and of course, one of our most common questions is, will this be recorded? And we do record all of our webinars. And then usually about 24 hours or so after the webinar, we make those available for you. So you should be getting an email if you registered, and you can share the content with your board, your friends, your family, your other employees, all of that. So with that, we're going to get started and get going. Once again, I'm Dan Kimball. I am a product specialist with Aplos Software. My role here at Aplos is to help with our donor management product, as well as our fundraising tips and content. I'm a 20-year fundraiser. Had the opportunity to work in a number of nonprofits here in my region, my area, as well as some boards and all of that. So my role here at Aplos is really to help you, the nonprofit, feel successful and be successful in your fundraising. So we are pleased and privileged to offer this webinar each month. If you are interested in more about what we do, of course, you can go to our aplos.com website. You can see more about our accounting product, donor management. We have a brand new donor management product we just released that we're super excited about. But really, that's not why we're here today. But really excited to introduce to you today our special guest. Today we have from Continue to Give, Miss Abigail Shulz. Abigail, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Dan.
Great. And so Abigail, one of the great things about Aplos is that we create partnerships with other technology firms out there. And Abigail is the managing partner at Continue to Give. Of course, you can see her bio there. She's got some great background with both church and nonprofit professionals, as well as donor relations. She loves to help people. She's been involved in crowdfunding. Continue to Give, which she'll tell you is really a lot about online giving, which if you've joined our past webinars, we've talked about online giving. And so regardless if you're doing online giving currently, if you are new to the game and you want more information, hopefully you can walk away with a little bit more about this great technology. So with that, I'm gonna turn the reins over to Abigail. Again, we will do some Q&A at the end. If you want to type in your question during the webinar, I'll take a look at it. But at the very end, we'll do some Q&A, and we are recording this as well. So with that, Abigail, welcome to Aplos webinar, and we're so glad you're here.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, everybody, for having me. I'm very excited to talk to you today about some really important fundraising tips. Now, we're not going to talk about how to get started fundraising because a lot of churches and nonprofits and other fundraisers have kind of jumped in, and really we want to talk about donor fatigue. Dan, am I able to go to the next slide here?
There we go. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so really what I want to talk about is donor fatigue. So as you're going out, you're gaining a lot of donors, you're talking to a lot of people. If you're at church, your donors are sitting in the pews. If you are a nonprofit, your donors are going to be people you meet. They're going to be businesses. They're going to be people that are supporting you. So it's really important that we watch out for this very, very silent donor fatigue that goes on in churches and nonprofits. This causes loss of retention. It causes dips in the fundraising of the nonprofit. There's a few specific donor fatigues that I want to really talk about today. They're going to be a little bit more general, but I'm going to give you some very specific ones that you can walk away with today and actually work on. So one of the big reasons for donor fatigue is what we call your call to action. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking specifically about website fatigue. Most churches and nonprofits nowadays have a web presence, really important as we go more into technology. We're going to talk about a couple donor equations that I personally see with the churches and nonprofits that I work with. And we're going to also talk about over asking and how to avoid that. So let's get started. Now, most of you may already know what a call to action is, and some of you, this may be very new to you. So a call to action is what your organization would like that individual to do for them. So in most cases, it's to donate. Everything else, such as your content, should revolve around this. So for example, when you're talking with somebody, when somebody's looking on your website, when they're in the church and they're looking at a bulletin, are you making it clear that you want them to donate? I know this sounds really obvious, but it's actually really important. So a lot of times the donors get really caught up in everything that you're doing. You're going out, you're doing mission work, you're going out and you're promoting your cause. But in reality, that donor needs to rein that in and say, okay, in order for that cause to keep going, I need to donate. So it's really important that you're asking yourself, are the people that come across your content or that you're talking with understanding that you want a donation? Now, a call to action may differ in a couple different ways. So if your organization is really specific about volunteering, your call to action is going to be volunteering. But specifically, we're talking about the donation process. So it's really great when people are just hearing things about you. That's really great. But the next step is actually call them to an action to donate. With your call to action being clear, we want to make sure that the donation process is clear, it's visible, it's convenient, and it's easy for your donors. So typically at a fundraising event, something that would be visible would be somebody walking around collecting envelope donations or a text to donate number, some of these things that we're going to cover. So where should your call to action be located? Well, it's located in a couple ways. So for example, a church, the pastor is going to have a call to action, maybe a sermon every once in a while about donating. Also in the church bulletins, if you are a nonprofit and your donors are on Facebook, that's a really great place to put your call to action every once in a while, making a recurring post that talks about donating, having a donation button up on Facebook or a link, especially handouts. Now, nonprofits and churches, you do have a lot of marketing material at your fingertips. You're going to have bulletins. You're going to have emails. You're going to have newsletters. These are all called your content, what you're talking about to your donors and your followers. So a couple things that we really want to point out about content, especially website. I've been on a lot of different ministries' websites where I'm really intrigued with what the ministry is doing. I'm very, very excited. However, finding the donate button is actually can be annoying because I can't find which page it's on. So if you find that your donors take more than 2 clicks to actually find where that donation button is, you're going to have website fatigue right away. And that's going to be frustrating to that donor. So 1 click is very important. Now, I know sometimes you don't want to be upfront and what they call in the face for the donation. However, that's not the case that we see. The donor is not actually offended at that donate button being front and center anywhere. In reality, you get more donor fatigue with them trying to find that donate button than them ever being offended that there's a donate button there. You are a nonprofit. You're expected to collect donations. Don't worry about offending to have a donate button, especially up in the upper right-hand corner. That's typically where the eye looks on websites. Keep that in mind. Now, if you're having very designated donations and you really want to make that clear, keep that main donation up in the upper right-hand corner. And these other pages, like if you have a camp specifically or a capital campaign, and you have a separate page for that on your website, go ahead, put a second donate button. There's really no limit to how many donation buttons you can have on a website, but the most important thing is that it's easily found. Now, a couple of things when we're reminding people with newsletters and email salutations. Now, again, if you're sending out a snail mail, a newsletter, so it's actually going to be a printout, couple things that you should have on there is it's very clear how that they should donate and where the donation can be sent to. So a return address, especially having those, self-addressed letters that can be sent back. Also, a really great thing that you should have on there is some sort of text to give or QR code giving. That way they're just taking their phone and making that donation right away. They're not putting on a stamp, and that can save you, especially for that retention rate where you don't get the letters back and then you do lose a stamp. That can be costly. So taking technology into account, that can save you money. Email salutations. Now, emails are a really great way to connect with your givers. I do have a template here. It's really important that you are talking to first-time givers as well. You're making it so that you're telling them this is a really great and easy way for them to donate. You have their best interest in mind, that they want to help out with your organization and they want it to be easy and effective and quick. Everybody's time is very important. So in order for them to make that donation quick and simple, that's the best way. Also, in your salutations, also having a way that says if you would like to support us, and having that donation link there at all times, that's reminding them that they can give, but also it's a very subtle reminder. It's not always, you're not always sending out emails to ask people for donations, and that's really important. Sometimes you're just communicating. However, if that person said, oh yeah, I got that email a long time ago about donating, and they have to look through those emails to actually find that donation button, again, you're causing fatigue and you're causing an annoyance. They want it to be quick. They want it to be easy, because in the end, they really do want to support your cause. So again, just kind of looking at the website stress, how easy is it to give? Is your call to action clear on your website? So does your website revolve around what you're doing and how that donor can help promote that cause? And that's the donation. Counting your clicks, and where is your donate button? In the upper right-hand corner. Very, very great place to put it on your website. So one of the things that we talk about with churches and nonprofits, we can actually fatigue our donors by over asking for donations. So we're going to go into a couple equations later that are going to make a lot of sense, but let's talk about the recurring donation. So statistics actually show that recurring donations are the #1 reason for increased giving in your church or nonprofit. So if you think of it this way, let's just take a church as an example. And let's say each family maybe gets sick once a year and don't come to church, and then they have a vacation. And so those times they're not actually giving you that check or that cash. They're not physically showing up. And then let's also remember that typically the next Sunday they don't give a double portion. So now if you take a recurring donation set up one time, well, that family's never missed a donation for those 52 weeks in that year now. And now they actually are increasing that donation because you're not missing donations anymore. So it's really important. Recurring donations also help with the over asking of donations. typically you will see a very good long-term commitment, and then in addition, extra giving, because a lot of times they set it and forget it. And then later when you have a special project, they're like, wow, that special project is so cool. I'm just going to give a quick, $30 to this one specifically. So not only are you...
Yeah, and Abigail, if I could also just reemphasize, I love that point. Partly because when in the fundraising space, when we talk about donor retention, as you're probably aware, most nonprofits lose 50, 60, 70% of their donors from year to year, and all the research, all the studies show that if you're in reoccurring donations, you're gonna reduce your turnover by a significant amount. So I think that's an excellent point. I appreciate that you're emphasizing that, because it is a great way, because if there's no end date, you have that steady income coming in or donations. So great point.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yes, like Dan said, this is very important. Typically, when you first set up your online giving, this is the number one thing you want to emphasize in that email is, hey, look, this is easy for you. It's convenient, saves paper, So there's lots of ways you can put that recurring donation. But really importantly, it will help you with over publicizing. And we're really going to talk about over asking for donations as well. But the reoccurring gift, really great option. Very important for your church or nonprofit. So let's talk about the donor equation. This is really my last point and last takeaway. There's some really important things in here, so I want to spend a little bit more time. So let's talk a little bit about donor equation number one. Where is the donation going? So now some nonprofits and churches do take offense, but some donors do ask, where's my money going? Is it going to bonuses? Is it going to salaries? Now, that is a very offensive question to churches and nonprofits. And I definitely, share, share in that, but it is important that we let those donors know, hey, look, we're doing great things. This money goes toward, X, Y, Z. So it's really important that you connect with your donors and you're showing them, hey, look, your donation doesn't just get lost in the pool of money and we decide where it goes. Your donation is actually equaling this. So a good way to put it is, World Vision really did a good job when they said sponsor a child. Now, when I'm giving my money every month to World Vision, in my mind, I'm sponsoring that child. Now, we all know a portion of that goes to the overhead of World Vision, but I've reached a goal as a donor. I've actually seen where my money's going. I know that, it's specifically going to each child, and I can sponsor more children. So you're actually telling the donor, hey, look, your donation goes to that. I know it's hard to actually quantify sometimes, but it's really important to give a general quantification or a general description of where the donor's money is going, or to give them designated donations, as you've seen below. Now, with churches, there's lots of different things that you can do. You can have a general fund where the donor's leaving it in your hands to be able to delegate, or you can actually break it out by different events. Typically, there's a mission. If you're an animal rescue, a lot of times even breaking it down by each pet is a really great option, or a general cats versus dogs, stuff like that. So if you can kind of think a little bit about your budget when you go to your budgeting and say, okay, where does money go? And think, hey, look, wouldn't that be cool if donors knew that we did that? Go ahead, put that on there. Make sure they knew that. Something that really caught my attention to an organization I recently donated with. Now, I know not all organizations can say this or be able to do this, because some cost more overhead than others. But at the very bottom of my donation slip, it actually said, thank you for your donation. Just so you know, only 3% of your donation goes to overhead. All the rest of your donation goes to the actual cause. So whatever I was donating to, I had, a really great understanding that 97% of that donation went there. Now, like I said, not everybody can say that. However, that's one of their strategic marketing practices that they can put in there. And we do have to remember that as we are looking for donors, we're selling them an opportunity to be a part of something greater than themselves. So we do have to use sales language. We do have to use marketing. And we do have to make sure that it's really clear what they're donating to. The second donor equation I want to spend a little bit of time on, and this is not something talked about very often, but as Dan's going to show you later with the software features, this is something that's extremely important. So over asking for a donation, you have a number of different donors. You have donors that have never given to you. You have donors that give to you regularly, and you have donors that give periodically. It's really important that you break that up, because if you're going over to Joe, who already gives $100 a month, and you're saying, hey, give me a donation, you're exhausting Joe. Joe, who is already giving to your organization monthly recurring, he needs to see the great things that he's a part of. So he needs a separate newsletter sent out to him. So you really do need to break it down and say, donors that are currently giving, they need to be supported in showing what they're doing. Now, I'm not saying you can't ask for a donation, but the call to action should not be for another donation. The call to action in that specific communication should be, Joe, you're doing these great things. Is there somebody else that would like to do these great things with you? So the call to action should actually be to share about what he's doing. He has pride in what he's doing. He's supporting a great cause. He's doing great things because he's actually a part of your team. Now, a donor that gives periodically, your call to action should be different for them. You should be giving them communication saying, thank you so much for that donation. You helped us achieve this goal. Would you like to be a long-term contributor? Would you like this to come out every month? So you're actually asking for that recurring donation. Now, the people that have not donated yet but are interested in your cause, they're going to need communication such as, here's what we're doing. Would you like to be a part of this? So really, you're looking at first-time donation call to action with them. So you're looking at a different way to market them. You're building trust with that first time. So I can't, emphasize enough how important it is that your donors are all different. They do fall into certain categories, as we'll see, and Dan will show you how to track that. But it's really important that you're not fatiguing the donor that's giving as much as they can. They maybe can't give you anymore. However, they can help spread the cause to bring in another donor. So really important there. I've talked to a number of donors, especially businesses. They get so many, newsletters and emails of, can you donate? Just in reality, they are kind of getting a little spammed with too many organizations. So just be careful about spamming. Be aware of, especially email laws. You need to have an opt-out, clean email list if people don't want to be on those anymore. And make sure you're constantly cleaning up your communication list. Building new ones. So you have to think of each donor as a potential opportunity. So keeping notes on where they are, how many times you've contacted them, and specifically too, are they already a donor and you're just keeping up with them and hoping that they spread the news about you, or are they a new donor? Maybe they need a personal face-to-face interaction. So using some type of CRM to keep track of that and make sure you're separating how you're communicating with them. So again, I can't emphasize enough the donor equation. If you take anything away today, that you kind of look at your donors a little bit differently and kind of categorize how you're contacting them. So with that, I'd like to lead it into the Q&A.
Great. Yeah, great stuff. A couple of takeaways, and then I have a couple questions, and then those of you who are listening, if you guys have questions, you can just go ahead and type those in the question box, and we'll fill those as we go. First of all, I guess my kind of a general question is, if I'm a nonprofit or a church and I'm not currently doing any kind of online giving, where would you say a good place to start is? How do we get going? And because it can be daunting for some people.
Yeah. So, as far as online giving, if you just need a simple donation button, I know that Aplos does have those as well. If you would like to get into mobile giving, the text to give, and really open up all the different avenues, especially for churches offering kiosks. If you go to continuetogive.com, we do have some different options for you to choose from. Now with Continue to Give, we integrate directly with Aplos. So if the donation happens on Continue to Give, it does go into your Aplos accounting system. So our systems do communicate. But again, Aplos does have an online giving form as well. But if you do need the online, the mobile, the kiosk, the crowdfunding, Facebook, if you really need it all, know that Continue to Give would have it, and it integrates directly into Aplos.
Yeah, and one of the common I'll call it complaint or struggle is that with any kind of online giving, no matter if it's PayPal or Continue to Give or technologies, website processing, there's the whole issue of credit card fees. They all have them. There's no such thing as free. And so there's a little bit of two sides to whether or not you should ask the donor to help cover those or not. Abigail, do you have any insight on that or any thoughts about how to handle that?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have what we call like a cover the donation option. Yeah. Now, it really is up to your organization, but all it would be a little box they would click where they can choose to cover that donation. It's like a convenience fee. So if you go to a library, a lot of times if you use your credit card, they do actually charge you a convenience fee. Some places do, some places don't. So the donors are really aware of that now. As far as convenience fees goes, I would always recommend having it available and letting the donor decide from there. It's just an option for them. Again, they can choose not to, or they can choose to do it. But when you're talking again about asking for donations and asking for covering the fee, that's just something the donors would expect to see nowadays.
Do you from your clients and folks who are using your software, do you see one way or the other more leaning to cover it, not cover it? Do you find people are saying you shouldn't ask donors? I donate to several organizations that I do cover the fee. We're talking about $50 a month. So with the fee, it's like $52 donation. For me, it's no big deal. But other people, right? What do you see on your end?
Yeah. So let's talk about the fees just for a second, because I think this will give a better understanding as to cover them or not to cover them. So for example, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, they do have nonprofit rates. So typically your average donation should be about 1.5% plus 30 cents, and your ACH should be about 0.5% plus 30 cents. So we're not talking about a huge transaction rate anymore. However, we do see that 90% of the nonprofits do want to cover the fee. And even before that feature was available, the donor would add it on as well. Yeah. So it is a huge number of churches and nonprofits that choose to have that option. And the donors sometimes even ask for it.
Great.
So we do see that definitely growing. But just looking at the fees now with the credit card companies realizing that churches and nonprofits needing that, they are lessening those for you as well.
Good. Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's good. So Richard McDonald just wanted to say thanks for the webinar. He thought his strategy was strong, but can still improve greatly. Thanks. So that's from Rich. So good job, Abigail. We have a question here from Lisa. We're a small church with a membership that skews older. I understand that. So although we're offering online giving, few members have taken advantage of it. We've noticed that people are giving generously, but are less and less willing to commit through an annual pledge. Any thoughts on how we might address that?
Yeah. So when you're talking about, talking about an older generation, now there is a misconception that the older generation does not want to use the technologies. And I can tell you, if you're a customer service, we actually work with a lot of older generations. And if you actually look at the different generations, the younger generation doesn't always have the funds to donate. However, the older generations do. So we definitely want to accommodate them. Now, one of the ways that we typically see a better retention rate for the older generation is an offering kiosk, something that's set up at your church where they can walk up. Another way is to make it more professional, where they would be allowed to request a meeting with somebody on your finance team or a secretary, sit down and then set that donation up through the virtual terminal, like we would have on Continue to Give, where you would be, talking with them about if they wanted to do some sort of commitment or just get set up so it'd be easy. One thing that we do have at Continue to Give is called the Givers app. And we also have the Text to Donate, where once they register their phone for Text to Donate, they literally just text their amount, like let's say $100, charges their credit card, goes ahead and emails them a receipt and sends them a text message. The Givers app, they're clicking the app and then they're just clicking on to give and then the amount they'd like to give. So making it easy, giving them more ways to give. I do see a lot of older generations using cell phones nowadays. Now, one idea that really works well is if you have a lot of people giving with check and they've expressed that they would like something easier, but they don't want to go online, put a pledge card out there. Say, if anybody would like their check to be set up recurring for any amount, put it in this envelope and just mark that. You could use the virtual terminal and Continue to Give, for example, to just input that checking information and the pledge information that they wanted. It does take, about 2 minutes set up on your side. Really, that's all it takes. You just input that information. However, that information would be saved for later use. So if for any reason you need to go in and change that, you would just click on their name and click on what you need to change. So you're actually taking on that donation process for the donor. We've actually talked to a number of nonprofits where that is the number one reason that their donors actually contribute to their cause, because there's so many great causes out there. However, now that specific nonprofit made it 10 times easier for them. Yeah. So they're actually giving their donors customer service.
Another thought on that, if I could add, if you don't mind, Abigail, is, sometimes I think it's important that you have the right people asking for support. In other words, so in Lisa's, your case, you're a church, if you have a young 20-something-year-old stand up and talk about how easy it is to give, that's great for the people in that generation, but sometimes it's good to have somebody in the older generation who actually is an online giver to stand up and to tell other people in their age category, hey, look, I'm doing it, you can do it too, kind of thing. So, I think sometimes, having groups represent each other is really important on that. So Tim from Illinois, Tim says, thanks for the info you've shared. In your experience, what are the best ways for churches to ask for donations while avoiding donor fatigue?
Yeah, so typically we do suggest that if you have not already done an announcement from the pulpit as far as a video showing them different ways that they can give. Also, when you're making this announcement, you're not necessarily saying, please give, please give, please give. Make it so that you're saying, we've listened to a number of interest in the online giving, making it easier for you, and we're accommodating that. So now there's a purpose to your announcement besides give. The purpose is actually saying, hey, look, you guys talked to us and we came through. So that's a really good way. Also, I know there's really great ways to incorporate giving and the tithing inside the sermons as well. That is a good way. But talking about your small groups now, if you do have a type of small group, especially like a young couples group talking about finance, if at any point there's a time where you talk about finance in those small groups, it's really great to bring up, that the typical 10% tithe. That is a good number. And also keeping your projects fresh. So if you have a missions project going on, as you have things that come up in your budget, make sure you let the congregation know, hey, look, we need a new roof for the church. There's a great response to new things that come versus having the same typical, missions tithing project. So keeping it fresh, letting them know what you need funds for, creates better engagement.
Yeah, Tim, and I might also add too. I think I don't know if you've been on some of our other webinars or not, but if you have, one of my big topics is I love to talk about the idea of storytelling, and really being able to tell good stories. In other words, if you're telling good stories about how that money is being used and the great things that are happening because of those donations, there's an opportunity for people to want to stay engaged and continue to give. No pun intended, on your great name of your website, Abigail. But so I think the idea is that you're not, if they feel like all they ever do is ask for money, but they never tell us what else is going on, then I think that's where the fatigue sets in a little bit. And then
Right.
of course, and then I would say on top of that, just you can never overthank donors. So just make sure you're using all sorts of mechanisms to thank. I think the challenge with online giving is that it does make it easy. Your finance people love it because it's easy to process, it's easy to track, and especially if you have software that links up to it. But the temptation is to lose the relationship from the donors. So Tim and others, I would also suggest that try to make sure that if you do have online giving program of any kind, that you continue to look for ways to stay engaged in a relationship, getting to know your donors, whether that's through thank you events, thank you notes, thank you cards. One of the things that I do as a practice, I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with boards. I'm asked often to come in and speak to boards and nonprofits. And one of the things I do is I ask the board members, when's the last time you as a board member or a church board even has written a thank you card or a thank you note to somebody that's given? So just as an exercise, at every board meeting, have board members each write 3 thank you notes. So that would be one way to kind of, extend on that a little bit. Melissa,
and
go ahead.
Just one more thing about that. When we talked about the donor equation, this ties directly into that with donor fatigue. You have a lot of people that are giving as much as they can, and they're giving very regularly. So making sure that your communication is different with them versus, somebody that you're trying to give for the first time. Like those thank you notes, they would be considered in your donor equation for people that are currently giving, and you're thanking them. So
I did a webinar
Absolutely.
last week on donor retention, and one of the things that we talked about in that webinar is that when you give someone a receipt, and that's typically if you're giving online, most software, so I'm sure continue to use, automatically gives you some kind of email reply that says thank you, we've received your donation of $50 or whatever, and that's all well and good, but I want to remind people that a receipt is not necessarily a thank you. A receipt is simply a mechanism that gives people record, and in some cases a tax document. But a thank you can be very, very different. So you can receive people, but then still find different ways to thank and acknowledge those people. So Melissa has a question here. This is a good one. Our community seems to have a lot of organizations asking the same businesses for money. How do you overcome the over asking to get a yes from businesses that are over inundated with requests?
Yeah, so this comes down to research, and it is, in a way, the other nonprofits, they're doing great things, but they are a little bit your competition for that specific donor. In that fact, so you will have to actually look at the organizations that are communicating to your potential donor. You'll have to see, hey, look, what are they telling the donor? Are they telling them where their donation goes? How's their communication flow? So looking a little bit about what they're offering. Now, one of the speeches I did was about knowing who your donation market is. Specifically, if you're into animal rights, you would be wanting to be contacting specific donors that have a passion for that. If you're a church or ministry, you're going to be wanting to contact those donors that are very specific to that. So it's really important that you're not only knowing your donor and knowing when to stop asking that donor for donations. Maybe they're just not in line with your mission or for your organization, but also knowing who else is contacting them, taking a look at their websites, looking at how they're positioning their cause and how they're telling the donor what donations go for and working from there. In that case, you do have to do a little bit of competitive research and have the better marketing material or the better pitch, so to speak, to that donor why they should pick you over the competition.
Yeah, that's a great point. I would also add to that, Melissa, that it's a good thing to do is identify the businesses that you're interested in and actually go to them and before you ask them for money, ask them first of all what are their interests in giving, and to what are good times a year to ask. In other words, maybe they were getting inundated in March, April, and May, because that's when a lot of, at least in California, there's where a lot of the events are because the weather's the best. And then there's school graduations and, so on, and mission trips and so on and so forth. Maybe the managers are more open if you could come to them, in October or November or I don't know, something like that. But just get to know them. If you can see here, I put up the slide about the Aplos donor management software, and I'm not going to really go into it, but if you can see on there, one of the things we do is we create a communication center and a contact database. So if you have software, if you have donor management software, you can start identifying businesses and you can start listing key contacts. Who's the manager, who's the best person. You can link maybe some people on your board or advisory boards who have relationships with business owners. I am going to, unfortunately, the bad news, Melissa, on this question is that I think everybody struggles with it a little bit. But I think just trying to be creative and actually utilizing, your contacts within your organization of that. So that's a really good question. It looks like, thank you. Okay, you're welcome, Melissa, very much. You have no follow-up on that. So Abigail, we have a few more minutes and not too many more questions coming in, but you're still feel free. I just want to again say if you've got something that we didn't cover here. Whoops, sorry about that, folks. I just wanted to show you that we have our website. Abigail's website is right here. Continue to give, and then my email address. I love Twitter, so if you want to interact with me on Twitter, you can feel free to do so. So if you have any follow-up questions, you can contact us directly. Also, there will be a recording of this webinar that will be available. We'll send you an email if you registered for this webinar. Even if some people had to tuck out early, this full recording of this is available. One more follow-up question from Tim, which is, you mentioned that donor fatigue can be a in quotes, hidden issue. What are the signs that donor fatigue is an issue in an organization? That's an excellent question. It's so good, I'm going to let Abigail take it first.
Yeah, so one of the obvious ones is that you do see a drop in your donations, especially from a long-term giver. That's really important. So I would suggest looking at creating a giving history is really important. And that's really what Aplos' donor management is going to do for you. So looking at those donors, if long-term donors drop off, you need to know why. You have to think of them as your long-term customer, and now all of a sudden they've decided not to give to you. They've possibly turned to somebody else, and it's really important to know why. So sometimes they can get inundated with, somebody else gave them something fresh, something new. You haven't talked to them in a while. So those are ways. As soon as you see that drop, if you are planning events, seeing a drop, and also if you're steady. If your income or your fundraising is steady, that's also an issue. You're not engaging anybody to give more. You're not engaging the new donors or prospect donors to give, and that is a problem. So if you're looking at any drops, even from, one or two long-term givers, definitely giving them a phone call, number one. Don't send them an email, give them a phone call, talk to them personally. But also if you're not growing, that's also an issue that you want to look at as well.
Yeah, great answer. And I would agree with all of that. And I also the only thing I would add on that, Tim, is just that, do compare, I'll call it a campaign, but compare, whatever that fundraiser is or that fundraising season or whatever that campaign is from year to year, and look if there's dips in activity. In other words, if the giving trends are going down or up, or that kind of thing. Data can be a friend. I know data it can be overwhelming for people. That's why we do really emphasize whatever software you decide to use. Of course, we are a software company, so we talk about ours as well as continue to give. But the main thing is that you're hopefully doing something that's using some technology that will help you run some of those numbers, so you can look at that.
Yeah, and just one other point to that: if you want to be ahead of donor fatigue, look at a list of your donors from people that give little to people that give a lot, and go ahead and just randomly call a few of them. Just ask them a few questions, do a survey, do it personally. That'll be better. Sending out an email could, inundate a fatigue process of ignoring emails. So you do want to watch that. But trying to get ahead of it is talking to your donors and just honestly ask them, like, hey, do you like what we stand for? Do you like the different options that we have to give to you? Do you like what we're doing? What do you wish we did more of? Getting that feedback is going to be really important before they decide to switch to donating to somewhere else. So staying on top of that.
Great. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Asking for donor feedback, I think, is a really good step in building that personal relationship with folks. So that's really good. Abigail, do you have any final thoughts or anything else you want to end off with as we wrap up our time together?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. I think just one final note as you're looking for donors and you're looking for donations, just kind of remember to step into their shoes a little bit. What would you like to be asked from that organization that you're donating to? You want your opinion to matter. Would a phone call, be a really good way, or, different things like that. So as you are keeping track of your donors, keeping notes, some people prefer email, some people prefer phone, that you're really starting to customize, because each donor is really important to you. And creating priorities to certain donors as well, if they need a little bit more contact or less contact. But again, donors are your source of income to keep doing that cause and mission that you're passionate about. So definitely keep in mind, the communication and keeping them in the loop, and keeping those thank you messages coming as well.
Great. Good. Thank you. Abigail, I want to, on behalf of Aplos, we want to thank you, and thank you for your great insight. We want to continue to give for your partnership and for your time. Those are some great tips. Hopefully, those of you who took the time to listen can, walk away with some tips and some things to help you improve. And once again, we will have a recording of this available, so you can maybe you have a committee or board that wants to listen to this. So thank you all for your contribution. We will be back at you next month. You can go to our Aplos Academy on our website for more content like this. We have past webinars, also we have a couple exciting webinars coming up. I'm actually going to be doing a webinar on our new donor management system starting on Thursday the 1st. We also have a special guest who will be announcing here just in a couple days, who I think if you are interested in really taking your fundraising to a next level, you're going to love who we're going to be announcing here, but we have to wait on that. That'll be in June. So with that, we want to thank you, Abigail, once again. Have a great time. Best of luck in your fundraising efforts, and please reach out to us if you have any other questions. So you all have a great day and happy fundraising.